Hello everybody, and welcome to this hangout on the topic of how to deal with unhappy members attending your events, but also offline in your community. Today, I'm here again with you, Anastasia from the InterNations Academy, as well as Miriam from the InterNations events team. And we are happy to talk to you about this topic because we think it's very important. Of course, ambassador role is quite fun and you have a lot of rewards from it, but sometimes it can be quite challenging, especially when it comes to dealing with unhappy members, dealing with complaints. As all you know, ambassadors and hosts at events, as hosts at the events, there are sometimes members that aren't happy with everything, whether it's the event itself that they don't like so much, or maybe some InterNations features that they decide to talk to you about, or maybe something on the platform they're not satisfied with, or maybe just some other member that they're unpleasant with. So since you have a very visible status as InterNations ambassadors in your community, these members consequently can approach you and also get in touch with you. And as ambassadors, somehow you need to also represent InterNations and try to explain them and try to deal with these difficult members, as we call them. So what's the best way to approach this? What's most important to mention when somebody files a complaint to you? Let's talk about this in our session today. And of course, we do have quite a lot of experiences in our communities, and our experienced ambassadors who have dealt with these topics or have more knowledge about this topic. And that's why we have invited our guest speaker today. And I'm sure you will get a lot out of his discussion, of him answering the questions today. So don't forget to use your live chat on the right-hand side of your screen. So when you're viewing the video right now with us, go to the right-hand side of your screen. If you don't see the live chat, click on Show Live Chat, and then you can post any question you might have. We're going to keep an eye on those and make sure that our guest speaker and Miriam will answer them today.
Yeah, hey guys, also from my side. Yeah, and thanks for the nice introduction, Anastasia. So my name is Miriam. I work with the ambassadors in Canada and South and Central America. And yeah, of course, like Anastasia already said, for such a topic with a lot of variety, with a lot of different things that you keep in mind, it's always good to have an experienced guest speaker who can speak about the topic because he experiences it in his community. So we have Kishi with us today, and he's an ambassador in Los Angeles. And he's a great speaker on this topic because he's very sympathetic with any member that reaches out to him and makes sure to personally follow up on any feedback he receives. And he and his team are extremely dedicated to InterNations, the events and the members, and go above and beyond to balance the community's needs and wishes with the restrictions and guidelines of the events. And that's absolutely fantastic. That's why we invited him today. Kishi, so before we start with the questions, would you like to say a few words about yourself and then tell us maybe also what do you think, what characteristics are important for an ambassador to deal with unhappy members, just like to get the session started?
Yes, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Mariam. That is such a great introduction. Honestly, if I'm going to get a letter of recommendation, I'm going to ask you ladies, actually. It's an amazing recommendation. I'll give you a bit of a background about myself before I go forward, so that it gives you an idea how I'm going to go and explain the question that Mariam just asked, actually. So I'm currently consulting in the strategic cybersecurity vertical. And in the last 15 years, I had many leadership roles which required me to address issues among clients and employees. I've incorporated this knowledge in my role as the LA ambassador right now. So I actually feel really humble here that I can bestow this knowledge at the Q&A session, because dispute resolution is actually an art and requires practice like any task one would be given responsibility of, actually. So the key point here, before I go into your question, practice makes perfect. However, listening and self-improvement also enriches that practice. So now let's get to the question you just asked. And you asked, how would a good ambassador react to any unhappy members, and what kind of characteristics are important? So, in my humble opinion, I feel that to be a good ambassador, there are certain characteristics that's required by a leader. One, a good ambassador will try to balance the goals of InterNations with the needs of his members to ensure that the community is at peak performances. Second, I believe that it also means a great ambassador will treat everyone fairly, assist those that need help with the new community, engaging in conversation with all the members, and spreading the philosophy into the nation. So basically, it's just a positive outlook, which is really important. Uh, and third, which is the difficult part of trying to anticipate problems before they happen as an ambassador. That's a really special task that I feel everyone should be learning. Also, a good ambassador cannot be a dictator, distant in character, and reserved from his community. So to conclude in your question, I always believe all this leads to the fact that a good ambassador must always lead by example.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you very much for this fantastic introduction, Kishi. I think you already mentioned a lot of very important points and very important characteristics, how ambassadors should kind of like approach members, how they should talk to them and make sure that every member actually feels kind of appreciated by the ambassadors, of course, as kind of the leaders of the community. So since we don't have any questions yet from our viewers, but please feel free to ask any questions you might have. We might want to like go into detail already a little bit about like different things that could happen where members could be unhappy. So let's start with the events. So what do you tell members if they actually criticize some of the organizational part of the event or your performance as ambassador at the event? How do you go about this?
So, sorry, Mariam, could you please repeat the question again?
Yes, of course. If you, what do you tell members if they criticize your event or your performance as ambassador at the event? Has that happened to you? And if so, what do you tell them? How do you make sure that you listen to them?
Okay, so that's a good question, actually. So the only correct way to answer this question is to present yourself as a person who can handle criticism without being angry, defensive, vengeful, or arrogant. Yet not let others intimidate or blame you when you don't deserve it. So, there was a time when I was deeply hurt when when a supervisor pointed out a mistake I made or an area in which I needed to improve, and I felt somewhat defensive. However, throughout the years, as I mature, I've learned that no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, needs to improve in certain areas, so I shouldn't take criticism so personally. Therefore, what I've learned actually is to take it on the chin without becoming defensive or feeling hurt. I just take a few minutes, or to a few days to think about it, of what been said. Even I feel the criticism is warranted, I take steps to improve my performances. But if I feel the criticism is unjustified, I will sit down with the member and calmly discuss the reason why I feel the criticism is unjustified.
Okay, yes, great, Kishi. Thanks for this answer. Benjamin from Dakar, he asked the question, and he actually wishes, he thinks it's very interesting, your tip about anticipating problems and challenges before they happen. So he wishes if you could still speak a little more about this. Do you have some more tips about like anticipating, how to anticipate problems, how to, I don't know, yeah, make sure that you kind of deal with challenges before they actually happen?
So that's actually a good observation in regards to how do you anticipate. Um, as I mentioned earlier also during the conversation, it's one of the hardest tasks, anticipating any kind of issues. I'm in LA. It's a crazy land, and we have all kind of behaviors in LA. Therefore, after attending a lot of events, meeting with members, or there are so many other groups that are out there, what happens is that you begin to realize there are categories of people. You heard of the A type, the B type, of people. And it's true because those categories define the people and the behavior and approach, conversation, intellect, and so forth. You start to pick up, you start to learn this kind of behavior. So I personally have read a lot of books of self-improvement. I've actually teach this part of my leadership requirements in my job, because I have to mentor other leaderships to go forward with, other leaders to be leaderships in a leadership role, sorry. So what happens is that it teaches you how to look at people differently. So you will not believe this, but you could read an article written by an FBI agent who actually describes 6 characteristics of a person that you could master and learn. So that is how I try to anticipate problems, by just having a chat, body language, conversation, coordination of the person, and so forth. Hopefully, I answered the question.
You definitely did. We're sure about this, right? Yeah, so thanks for this, Kishi. And Maura, another ambassador who's watching us today, she says that she would ask for detailed feedback and tell the complaining member that she will use the feedback and learn from it. And I think that's also something you already mentioned, which is definitely really important, to kind of take criticism as something that you can kind of like learn from and improve your performance. So
I agree.
something that also probably happened to you as well already in the past is that a member behaved in one or the other way inappropriately at one of your events. What did you do in such a case?
So, okay, so as I mentioned earlier, over the number of years, experience takes over. You learn different things as you go forward in life. One thing about inappropriateness in events does happen. It could be alcohol, it could be a relationship issue, it could just be the venue was not a great place, or even the weather was hot, something like that. You never know. So everyone might have a bad day that day. So what I've learned actually is through a few bullet points. One, I always stay calm in a situation like this, because if you are not calm, you tend to exaggerate the problem. Never be angry, always stay calm. You are the mediator. It's very important to stay calm at all times. Pretend you're a police officer and there are people filming you right now on their little camera, and you have to behave appropriately. Second, listen to understand. Just listening but not understanding the issue doesn't help you very much. If you understand what the person is going through, may help you develop a sense of requirement to help him out. Third, you accentuate the positive. People's having a bad day, weather's hot, the drink might not be right, and if you are going to tack on with negative connotations, it makes things a lot worse. So what you do is you accentuate the positive, ensure that the person is still on your side. Fourth, you state your case tactfully. The person is angry, you try to calm him down. As your tone is monotone, he eventually gets into your circle. It's called your circle. And as soon as you accentuate positive vibe, you can then state your case tactfully. As you state your case tactfully, is what you have heard or listened to his issue, and you're bringing solutions to what could help him out. And fifth is you attack the problem, you don't attack the person. So a lot of people approach someone who has an issue, and again, the person had a bad day or they broke up with someone, and if you attack the person itself, they're not really having a good day. So, but if you attack the problem, that will divert the full concentration of the behavior to the topic itself. And then on 6, you avoid the blame game. Don't blame yourself, don't blame him, don't blame the crowd. You try to moderate the situation as much as you can. 7, you must always ask the right kind of questions. If you're just going to go there, give suggestions, but not understand the right type of questions, you might not achieve what you want. Once again, this is through experience. And number 8, and this is the important part actually, we have to be confident as an ambassador when you reach out to a member that's having issues. If you're not confident, what happens is that it kind of disrupts the symmetry between the conversation. As soon as you have done all 8 and you come to agreement, you must always celebrate the agreement. Those celebration always ends up me buying this beer for the person so that he believe their friendship and InterNation is a place where he can be comfortable, a safe zone. That's very important. So now, if all above and that is said and done does not result in a positive outcome, I will have to ask the member to leave the venue. This is the last resort. And quite honestly, it's only happened once. So, and we may ban the member or take disciplinary action. So we could bar the member from attending the next 2 events.
Thank you very much, Kishi. And also maybe just to add from our end here, I think that's really detailed and fantastic advice. And I'm sure if you kind of like take all these points that Kishi mentioned into account, it's very unlikely that you can't find a solution with a member attending the event. If there's a case where there is still an issue with a member, then always please get in touch with your contact person at InterNations headquarters. That's really important because we have a lot of experience with cases like this from all communities around the world. We've collected all these cases over time and all the solutions we've come to, and we think that we can also then help you. So it's always also very important to keep your contact person updated in cases that are more difficult and cannot be resolved at the event.
Yeah, we can always support you and help you, given some tips or even contacting those problematic members ourselves.
Yeah.
And what Maura just wrote in the live chat, that she completely agrees with you, Kishi. An ambassador should be tough on issues and soft on people. So that's something maybe you can also add to your list as one of the points. And in her experience, it is really essential to be soft on people, to be always friendly and open with the members. And
That's right.
Benjamin also commented from Dakar.
Yeah.
Attack the problem, not the person. He loves that 100%. So.
I love that too.
Because we do tend to get very personal, and people do take feedback quite personally, especially if it's negative feedback or some criticism. But we should also understand that everybody is different. They might be expressing their opinions also in different ways, somebody more harsh than others. And at the end, they might just have a bad day. So nothing personal, focus on problem, try to solve it, and always stay positive.
Right.
And also another question coming from Maura. Maura is very active today. What to do with a member that keeps on harassing other members? Maybe you had such a crazy case in LA. What measures can ambassadors take, or what did you do in that case? and we will then follow up with what InterNations as a company, InterNations HQ can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kishi, could you maybe say whether you had the case when you had to deal with a member who was harassing other members?
Oh, sorry. Yes. There was a bit of a cutoff actually earlier. Yes. So actually, the approach that I just mentioned earlier above is the steps that I took, and was this for a patient, sorry, a member that was actually harassing other members actually. What happened is that we did approach the person. However, you must remember that as an ambassador, you are also the police of that uh, of your community. If someone complains about somebody else and you have to approach to go and see if it's an harassment or another issue, if a police were to present themselves at a crime scene, they must arrest anyone or question everyone at the scene, because you never know who actually is the criminal. Someone might be just complaining because that is how their attitude is. Hence, it might cause uncomfortable values or approach to the person being complained about, actually. So it's become a common method that I've realized that the person that really might look guilty may not be guilty at all. So again, I mentioned about all the steps we had. I move forward, have a calm conversation, chat with them, try to figure out where the issue is actually. I do speak to other members about the problem. I do write notes down, and I do get recommendation, and I also move forward to get advice from Leo. So Leo Wolfman is my community management team, and I do have a chat with her on a regular basis actually. So we try to figure out where the evidence lies and is presented, and we try to choose the best choice to resolve the issue quickly. So we try to focus on future and accentuate the positive, as I mentioned earlier, but there's always been cases where we just had to remove the member after multiple complaints. That removal goes forward once Leo, the other ambassadors, have a chat, and recommendation from other members come forward to discuss the issue. And as a collective group, we decide on the need whether the member should be removed. Again, it's very seldom we remove someone, but there's been cases, unfortunately, uh, we didn't have a choice, as we want every InterNation event to be a safe zone for all our members.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kishi. I think there's actually not so much to add from our side. Like you already said, it's important that you try to solve it in your communities, and then also get in touch with your community manager at headquarters. In Kishi's case, that's Lior. And yes, then we will closely look into the case together. Usually we try to get kind of like to see all perspectives and make sure that we communicate with everyone before we come to a decision, because like Kishi also said, sometimes it's not so obvious as it might seem in the first second. And then of course, depending on the case, we would then take further steps, like deactivating, for example, a member or sending warnings. But this is something, yeah, which really kind of like relates to the case and cannot be like, we cannot really give like a generic, yeah, generic method for it, because it really depends on how the case lays for every single one. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely right. Because it kind of requires empathy, it requires knowledge, it requires intelligence, it requires investigation. So pretty much you're Sherlock Holmes trying to run a community and solving a problem.
Yeah. So yes, Maura also asked another question, if ambassadors could also prevent members from attending some events or block them in some kind of way. Kishi, you want to say a few words about it? I think you already said something like that you, like just in the worst case, ask members to leave the event. And yeah, that's something that, yeah, I would also say it's kind of like the last resort. It's something that we should always avoid to happen, because it could always like harm the community as well, and also harm the events. So we should always try to find like a different solution, a better solution than banning members from the events. And that's also something that should be done on a case-by-case decision together with the ambassador team and your community manager at HQ. Yep.
Actually, absolutely right. If I could add also, what I would say is that, so in America, there's a lot of legalities, so you shouldn't handle the problem face on. I would advise that if you do have a bouncer, you have a manager of the club or manager of the hotel and all that, utilize their services, the security, to remove the member if need be. You should never approach a member and physically remove the member from the event. I will never encourage you to do that. Always use the security on the facility to ensure that you are in safety. The other thing is that I would also advise is that once you remove the member, have a chat with the owner, the host of the uh, venue, to ensure that you are safe after the event. Someone can walk you to your car to ensure there is no repercussion in the method that you had to do to remove the member.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Kishi, for adding this. I think that's also really important. So we've talked a lot now about any issues, how you deal with unhappy members in your offline events, and maybe kind of to close this part of the session before we move on like to the online part, like what we do if members approach you with messages. Do you have any case that you would like to share, Kishi, that was especially challenging in your community with your events?
Okay, so uh, so okay, so let me go forward, and I seem to have this question a lot. Actually, I have this question that come up. Was this pretty much every second event that I try to host or something like that. We do have a constant question on why do members, not the Albatross members, they have to pay for entry and do not receive any kind of drink offers or appetizers. It's a kind of question how membership money is being spent. So they always want to know what's happening there. And I've traveled the world a lot, and I've been to a lot of international events. And believe it or not, most of the ambassadors around the world are struggling with the same problem of getting or trying to obtain venues for free. Very difficult, actually. It's not becoming any easier, actually. When the economy is bad, you have a lot of venues. When the economy is getting better, it's very hard to get venues. So venues, they want a guarantee that the group will show up and host a minimum number of participants. And second is that they also require certain amount of monies to be spent at the bar plus order of food. So for example, if each individual member only spends, let's say, on a single drink, it might not break even for the establishment to pay for the wait staff. So not forgetting that, the area will be cordoned off just for our members. Hence, the establishment might lose their regular customers for the night. So in order to sustain the high demand of rent space and etc., we usually have a deposit to secure the location. I've seen the same thing in Australia, seeing in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Hong Kong. So, and Los Angeles is actually a very tough place to obtain venues. Hence, we pay a higher price to secure the locations. Now, that being said, and me discussing with the member and the questions that they've asked, so I've actually brought forward, and I've also mentioned this in the future. And since this is a live recording, it might be appropriate here too, that with the increase of price that is skyrocketing, we might have to expense Albatross members a small fee to sustain our small ragtag team in LA. So please remember, it takes time for us to search our venues, negotiate a price, for our members so that you can have a safe zone and the best drinks and food and all that you fancy.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Kishi. So now let's talk about like what do you do if members send you private messages, for example, which also happens a lot because you have this very visible status on the website. So
Yes.
if they, for example, send you a message, this could of course also happen at an event, but let's just pretend they sent you a private message complaining about some InterNations features to you, for example, complaining about payments. What do you do in this case?
Okay, so I did mention that I'm an engineer, so I approach everything with a logical approach. You know, I use that approach a lot because it seems to solve a lot of issues. My job is to solve issues all the time. So in combination to the philosophy above that we just mentioned for the last half an hour, when someone approach me, ask me questions online, or just have a chat, anyhow. I bring into what is called a decision-making skills that I need to move forward. This questions that is being asked requires the person to be able to explain clearly, okay, and also move forward to come up with a decision-making skill so that both parties will be happy. So let's take one good example. So someone did ask about the payment system. Okay, explain the breakdown of our spending, or could we work with the individual to help them understand where the spending is happening, how it's done, and there's other questions about the venue. There's always some question about clothing. Someone immigrated here, they have no friends, what can we do? So my methodology is quite simple. Remember, in all this conversation that's going forward, you must always stay calm and be polite. Extremely important. Even the emails that is pushed forward need to be addressed professionally, because as ambassadors, we are representing InterNations. Now, so my first thing is that I create a constructive environment. So I try to establish the objective, okay, what's going on, the conversation, agree to the purpose, and try to get the right people involved. Allow the opinions to be heard from both sides, and make sure that I'm actually asking the right questions. You must remember that these are a lot of expatriate. English might not be the first language. English is my third language, believe it or not. So they might not be writing as they understand or speak. So you must ask the right questions to make sure you establish a constructive environment. Next, you create good alternative. You chit chat with them, you figure out what's going on, you try to brainstorm, or they are trying to ask you a question, you consider different perspective. A lot of people ask me questions about housing or jobs, next international events. So I give them different perspectives, different areas, different ideas. If I do not know someone, as I mentioned earlier, get the right people involved. I get my other ambassadors, or I speak to Germany, or I know people who are real estate agents who can help out. And then they will ask questions about maybe clothing or fees. So I try to explain to them, explore the alternative, the methods you might implement, the validation of the method. Then between us, during the conversations, I choose the best alternative. Then I check the decision, and then I communicate even among others who may ask the same question. Now, you must be thinking, this is a really long email. Okay, I'm going back and forward, I'm trying to decide, and it's kind of crazy. Answer is actually not. Because once you have the methodology down, you basically understand or anticipate the problems that may appear, or the questions that your member is going to ask. Hence, you already have some questions, as you ladies mentioned earlier, that you have experiences and you have written down those problems. So I cut and paste, and I will explain the situation, readdress a few words, and I'm done. I try to keep the email progression within 3 email replies, and I am usually nearly 100% to their satisfaction.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kishi, for this great advice. And just to add here, in case you, for example, don't know a solution to something because it's very InterNation specific, and with regards to payments, for example, where you can't really help them because it's something that InterNations headquarters needs to deal with. There's two email addresses that you could always give to the members. It's support@internations.org and it's payments@internations.org. Maybe we can also write it in the live chat so that you have those email addresses there. That's something you can always share with the members, and then they can just get in touch with our support team directly. Yeah, just to make sure that like their complaint or their question is also been addressed to the right team immediately. Yeah.
We have another question from Benjamin. How do you deal with anonymous guests who take advantage of InterNations events and want to stay throughout the event? And how about registered members who bring the guests in? Did you have any of those issues in your community?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. I understand, Benjamin, the burden that you have to face actually. So what happens is that there's two approaches to this. One is a member that comes forward and he brings a guest and they always pretend or they forget their wallet or they try not to pay, and there's always methods of going forward with excuses. So we had set up payment systems online to ensure that you can pay by credit card, you can pay cash, you can pay was this online, and that is the three most common methods. I do not understand if a person coming to LA who not have a credit card or not have a cash or not read the information earlier and say he doesn't have money to pay. So what I usually do is when I'm running an event, if you've gone to some of the LA events, you'll see I try to write as much detail as possible for our members. Before the event moves forward, Leo sends out a reminder. I also do send out private messages to the members who have signed up in regards to the payment, how much is going to increase at the door, and we have all the systems. If you are bringing members, please ask them to sign up so that they could be InterNation members and get the privilege of getting a discount rate rather than paying a non-member fee. Over the few months, it actually has improved. There's a lot of communications involved, a lot of emails that's pushed forward, but it seems to be better now. The second thing is that the approach of where you place your table is extremely important. If you know how to strategize your table, you'll be able to control the crowd. So in LA itself, we know traffic is crazy. Driving an hour and a half is norm for LA. So we expect certain times of the event to have a lot of people attending. So we got volunteers. I trained our volunteers in such a way to control. If someone wants to pay cash, go to volunteer number 1. Someone's going to pay credit card, they go to volunteer number 2, and so forth. So we have 2-3 lines working as we move forward. And also because of the strategic table placement, we can see who's coming in and out. So I have my other ambassador, Ken, and myself. We stand at certain strategic points. And we know someone's trying to move or cut the line, we will instruct them to move back into position. So that is how we've been dealing with members who try to get in for free or stubborn or pretend as if they have forgotten their wallet every single time.
Okay, thank you very much for this great advice, Kishi. And maybe also kind of related to this, a lot of members bring friends, bring guests, and they then also want to become InterNations members and apply for membership, but then they're not being accepted as members, and like someone who wanted to bring someone then complains to you as ambassador. How do you deal with such situations?
Actually, that's a very simple answer to the question. So my advice is just reach out to one of the ambassadors, give us a recommendation of why the member should be approved. I usually follow up immediately with my community manager. Again, Leo was a Wolfman. She does a great job. And to be quite honest with you, I have not seen a single member rejected after one of the ambassadors has approached HQ and made our recommendation. So it's a very simple approach, nothing to worry about.
Okay, thanks very much for this short and precise answer. There are no more questions at the moment in the live chat. Is there something you want to add?
Well, I think there's not that much that we can add on top of Kishi's comments, because I think this is also a great professional approach that he was describing, and we really are fond of his philosophy, and that's something that we can only recommend to all the ambassadors who found themselves in the situations like having to deal with complaints, having to deal with some criticism. And apparently it works very well. And Kishi has like this cool strategy and very organized process also for online communication. So we will come up with the summary of this session, because I think it is also very important for other ambassadors who were not able to view us online to get the summary of all the tips and advice that Kishi has mentioned, and we'll post as a description to this video, so hopefully everybody can access it and get more skillful at this negotiation skills. And I think since we don't have any more questions coming in, I would like to ask Kishi to give his top advice to our ambassadors who are watching us now.
So yes, so actually, I'm sorry, what's that again? My final word, did you say yes? Yes, so yes, my final word will be is that as the steps I described earlier, always operate on a principle I described to resolve the issue. It's very important, and it does help. It does require training. Like anything, riding a bicycle, you need practice. If all fails, contact your InterNation community manager. They are there to help you out. You have the forums, you have Anna, you have people like this who are trying to create these great programs. The whole idea is to learn, expand, operate beyond what you have. And that's extremely important, actually. Learning is a key. And third, InterNation has a great team of quality assurances. These guys will ensure that the members are in accordance with requirements. They got legal teams that have discussed with them before with problems that I had to talk to them about. They have great communication teams. And then your community manager, once again, that is the pivot point that everybody needs to address or speak to. Make good friends with your community manager. You'll be surprised how much how much knowledge the person would have to be able to help you. And then the thing that everyone has to remember, the legality of each country is diverse. So hence, you might require help. Don't try to physically remove someone or think that you could use legal maneuvers to win something. There are reasons why InterNation have a legal team. Use them. They are the best. They will advise you what needs to be done. So with all this advice, you need any more help, you're always welcome to email me, call me, anything. I'm always there to help you. And thank you very much for allowing me to spend some time. And I hope this has been of some tremendous help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kishi, for all the valuable insights, all this fantastic advice you gave, and also from the lively discussion we had here. We could see that this is really a topic that our ambassadors wanted to talk about, that everyone had experienced already in one or the other way. I just want to add that, again, that please, yes, like Kishi already said, get in touch with your community managers. If there's any kind of like challenges occurring, make sure to use the emails, addresses, support, payments, and abuse for any kind of complaints, so that we can also tackle these and challenges immediately.
Yes, exactly. And of course, please stay tuned to your invitation to the next Google Hangout, because we are hosting them monthly. And obviously, you see from this discussion, it's been very lively, it's been very extremely helpful. So stay tuned for the invitation to the next Q&A sessions that we are hosting for you, our ambassadors. And until then, thank you very much, Kishi, for being with us. It's very, very late in LA, and I really appreciate that you could join us. And thank you, Miriam, for all the moderation and also for giving your great tips and input as well. And for all of you, wishing you great time at your next events. And hopefully you don't have any unhappy members. See you later.
Yep. Yep. Thank you.